The night started like any other. I had just moved into a cozy little cottage on the outskirts of town, excited to have my own space after years of sharing apartments with roommates. It was quaint, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness. The nearest neighbor was a mile away, a perfect haven for someone like me who cherished solitude. I spent the evening unpacking boxes and arranging my belongings, relishing the quiet that enveloped the cottage. As dusk settled into night, I lit a few candles and settled onto the couch with a book. The wind outside rustled the trees, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. But I felt safe inside, cocooned in the warmth of my new home. Around midnight, I decided to turn in for the night. I checked the locks on the doors and windows out of habit, ensuring everything was secure. The bedroom was cozy with a small window that overlooked the woods. I climbed into bed, feeling a sense of contentment wash over me. However, as I drifted closer to sleep, a faint sound caught my attention. It was a soft tapping noise, almost like fingernails lightly scratching against glass. I sat up, straining to listen. The tapping persisted, rhythmic yet irregular, coming from the direction of the window. Nerves prickling, I grabbed my phone from the bedside table and turned on its flashlight. With trembling hands, I approached the window. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, echoing in the stillness of the night. I hesitated, my breath catching in my throat as I peered outside. To my relief, there was nothing but the swaying branches of trees illuminated by the moonlight. I chided myself for being paranoid, attributing the sound to a branch brushing against the window pane. I closed the curtains tightly, reassuring myself that it was just my imagination running wild in the unfamiliar surroundings. Back in bed, I tried to calm my racing heart and focus on sleep. Just as I started to drift off, a soft whisper brushed against my ear. "Let me in," it hissed, so faint that I questioned whether I had heard it at all. My whole body tensed, every nerve on edge. I lay frozen, listening intently. Silence engulfed the room, broken only by the faint ticking of a clock downstairs. Just as I began to convince myself it was a trick of tiredness, the whisper came again, more urgent this time. "Let me in," it repeated, a plea laced with desperation. Fear seized me. I clutched the blankets tightly around me, my mind racing with thoughts of what could be outside. Was it a trickster playing games, or something more sinister lurking in the darkness? Summoning every ounce of courage, I tiptoed to the window once more. With shaking hands, I pulled the curtains open a fraction. Moonlight filtered through the glass, casting dim shadows across the room. There, on the other side of the window, stood a figure, a silhouette against the night. Its face was obscured, shrouded in darkness, but its eyes gleamed with an unnatural intensity, fixed on mine with an unsettling focus. "Let me in," it whispered again, voice hollow and chilling. I recoiled, stumbling back in terror. The figure pressed against the window, its hand reaching out as if to grasp for entry. Panic surged through me. I bolted from the room, racing down the stairs and out the front door, my heart pounding in my chest. Outside, the night air was cold and crisp. I glanced back at the cottage, half expecting to see the figure pursuing me. But the windows remained dark, the silhouette gone. I didn't stop running until I reached the neighbor's house, where I banged on the door until they answered. They listened to my frantic tale, offering comfort and assurances that no one else lived nearby. The police were called. When they arrived, there was no sign of anyone around the cottage. They searched the area thoroughly, finding nothing amiss. I spent the rest of the night at my neighbor's, too shaken to return to the cottage. In the morning, I gathered my essentials and left, never to return to that secluded haven. The memory of those haunting whispers and the chilling figure at the window haunted me for weeks, leaving me sleepless and on edge. I never found out what or who was at the window that night, but the experience left an indelible mark on me. A reminder that darkness can hide more than just shadows, and that some fears are born from the unknown lurking just beyond our perception. Before we get into the next story, if you come for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to a channel and press the bell icon for upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share the stories with your friends and family. Thanks. Being home alone was something I usually enjoyed. The quiet, the freedom, the peace. It was my time to relax and unwind. But one night, everything changed, turning my comfort into a chilling nightmare. It was a Friday evening, and my parents had gone out of town for the weekend. I was excited about having the house to myself. I ordered my favorite pizza, picked out a few movies, and settled in for a cozy night. The house was quiet, the only sounds coming from the television and the occasional creak of the old floorboards. Around midnight, as I was watching a horror movie, I heard a faint noise coming from upstairs. It sounded like footsteps. I paused the movie, listening intently. The house was old, and it made noises all the time, so I tried to brush it off. But the sound continued, slow and deliberate, like someone was walking down the hallway. A chill ran down my spine. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and decided to investigate. I crept up the stairs, my heart pounding with each step. The hallway was dark, and the beam of my flashlight cut through the shadows. I checked each room, finding nothing out of place. Finally, I reached my parents' bedroom at the end of the hall. The door was slightly ajar. Pushing the door open, I shone the light inside. The room was empty, but a strange feeling of being watched washed over me. Suddenly, my phone's flashlight flickered and died. Panic set in as I fumbled to turn it back on. When the light finally came back, I saw it. A figure standing by the window, watching me with hollow, empty eyes. I screamed and ran out of the room, slamming the door behind me. My mind raced. Who was that? How did they get in? I ran downstairs, locking myself in the living room. I called the police, my hands shaking so much that I could barely dial the number. "What's your emergency?" the operator asked. "There's someone in my house," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "I saw them in my parents' bedroom. We're sending officers to your location. Stay on the line," the operator instructed. Minutes felt like hours as I waited, clutching the phone to my ear. The house was eerily silent, but the feeling of being watched persisted. I kept glancing at the stairs, expecting to see the figure emerge at any moment. Finally, I heard sirens in the distance. Relief flooded over me as the blue and red lights flashed outside the window. The police arrived, and I unlocked the door, practically collapsing into their arms. The officers searched the house thoroughly. They found no signs of forced entry, and no one was inside. It was as if the figure had vanished into thin air. They assured me that the house was secure, and promised to keep a patrol car nearby for the rest of the night. Despite their reassurances, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I stayed downstairs, too afraid to go back upstairs. Every creak and shadow made my heart race. I tried to sleep on the couch, but the image of those hollow eyes haunted me. The next morning, my parents returned. I told them everything, and they were understandably concerned. They called a locksmith to change the locks and installed new security cameras around the house. Despite the added security, I couldn't forget what I had seen. Days turned into weeks, and life slowly returned to normal. But every time I was alone in the house, I felt that same chill. I avoided going upstairs at night, and I kept all the lights on. My parents tried to comfort me, but the memory of that night lingered like a dark cloud. I realized that some experiences leave a permanent mark, turning places of comfort into sources of fear. Being home alone, once a source of joy, had become a reminder of the unknown terrors that can lurk in the shadows. And though I tried to move on, a part of me would always remain vigilant, haunted by the figure that appeared in the dark.